Hello again, everybody. Today we're going to be wrapping up Module 18 and talking about the Inca Empire. Already covered the Maya and the Aztec. The Inca were quite different, living in a totally different type of geographic region. For starters, let's take a look at our map again. The Inca would be this blue area. They were located in the Andes Mountains, and they built their cities actually in the mountains, which was quite a unique feat, as we'll talk about as we go along. All right, so the rise of the Inca. The pre-Incan civilization began to develop in what is now Peru. 4 major cultures developed and built some of South America's very first cities, and each culture adapted to its own environment. These civilizations set the stage for the Inca. The very early Inca began as a very small tribe in the Andes Mountains. A ruler named Pachacuti led the Incas to expand their territory through agreements or conquests of other tribes. They would take over other tribes and they would end their empire. Later Incan rulers continued to expand their territory. By the 1500s, the Inca Empire was huge, and they contained forests, deserts, mountains, valleys, and coastline. Their civilization had a very varied geography for sure, but the Andes Mountains ran through much of their empire. The central government and language, as the Incas conquered more people, they had to devise a way to control them. And as their their empire was fairly spread out, they figured out a way that if they made the conquered leaders move out of their villages and move in with the leaders who were loyal to the Inca government, then they could control that area of the empire fairly easily. But the Incas made the children of the conquered leaders come to the Inca capital and learn about Inca ways. The Incas established an official language called Quechua. Although they didn't have a written language, the Incas kept records made of knotted cords, and these knotted cords were called quipas. The cords would be grouped together, or the knots in the cords would be grouped together, and that would represent different words and different phrases. The economy. The central government controlled the economy and had people pay a tax with their labor. Under what was called the Midas system, the government told each household what work to do and provided them with land to do it. And most Incas were farmers and grew potatoes or raised llamas. There were no markets or merchants. Instead, the government would distribute the goods. The people would produce the goods, give that to the government, then the government would take it and spread it from there. Leftover goods were stored in the capital for emergencies. For the Incas, position in society affected their daily life. Daily life for the upper class, which included the kings, priests, and government officials, they were the upper class. Men worked for the government. Women had household duties. Sons went to school. Upper class families had a lot of privileges, such as private schools, stone houses, and the best clothes of anybody. The lower class was made up of farmers, artisans, and servants, and there were no slaves in Incan society. They worked on government farms, or served in the army, worked in mines, or they built roads. Those were the jobs that the lower class had to choose from. Most children did not go to school, but instead learned how to farm, since that was what their job would probably be once they got older. As far as religion goes, they did have an official religion. As they conquered new regions, they would teach their religion to the conquered people. They allowed the conquered people to worship their own gods as well. And the god of the sun was the most important god of the Incas. They believed that their kings were related to the sun god. Again, another civilization where the kings feel like they're tied to the gods. The Incas rarely sacrificed humans. Instead, they sacrificed llamas, cloth, or food instead. Poor llamas. Parts of their culture, they had lots of great achievements in culture. As far as buildings, they were known for their massive buildings and forts made out of huge stone blocks. The blocks were cut very precisely that today it's nearly impossible to fit a knife blade between the stones. And they had no mortar, nothing to hold it together. So they were very, very, very precise, very good at what they did as far as building. The Incas also had a road system that connected all parts of their empire. And a lot of these roads were through the mountains, which meant that they had to carve out paths in the mountains, which would have been very difficult. As far as art goes, the artisans made jewelry of gold and silver. The artists also made brightly colored textiles or cloth. Their oral traditions, their oral traditions were made up of storytellings and songs. They also passed down their songs, dances, and religious practices, and that was part of their history that they would pass down. As far as the Incas, we know that Cortez defeated the Aztec. Another Spanish conquistador conquers the Inca and took over their region. Basically, this all started with a civil war that happened between two sons of a king, Atahualpa and Huascar. Atahualpa won the war with his brother, but he was captured by the Spanish soon after. Atahualpa had won the war, but all the fighting had weakened their empire. They were too busy worrying about fighting themselves rather than worried about other people who were coming in to invade. But a group of conquistadors led by a Spaniard named Francisco Pizarro arrived in the empire, and when Atahualpa came to meet the Spanish, they attacked and captured him. The Incas did all they could to help free Atahualpa by offering the Spanish a roomful of gold and silver, but the Spanish killed Atahualpa anyway. The Spanish defeated the last of the Incas, and the empire fell completely in 1537. The causes for the fall of the empire were very similar to those of the Aztec. They had internal problems with the empire to begin with the two brothers fighting each other. Leaders were captured. Guns and horses gave the Spanish a huge advantage. And then the diseases that the Spanish had brought weakened the native people. And that concludes our lesson on the Inca. And hope you all have a wonderful day. Reach out if you need help, please. Have a great day.